Just hold it right there. Hold it!
In 1992, as blockbuster action films dominated Hollywood and the Western genre lay dormant,
His head was all broke open. Could see inside of it.
Jesus.
Eastwood delivered what would become not just his masterpiece, but one of the most profound examinations of violence in American cinema. Unforgiven wasn't just another Western, it was a meditation on death, redemption, and the weight of past sins. The film arrived at a fascinating moment in Hollywood. The early 90s saw a shift away from the excess of the 1980s, with audiences and critics hungry for more complex narratives. Made for a modest $14.4 million, Unforgiven would go on to earn $159 million worldwide and claim 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. But its true impact goes far beyond these numbers. What makes Unforgiven particularly compelling is how it serves as both Eastwood's commentary on his own career and a deconstruction of Western mythology itself. Here was the man who built his career playing morally ambiguous gunslingers, now delivering a brutal examination of the cost of violence and the lies we tell ourselves about it. The story of William Money, a reformed killer drawn back into violence by circumstance and necessity, wasn't just another tale of revenge.
You remember how the spirit of your dear departed ma watches over you.
It was a mirror held up to decades of Western film tradition, reflecting back the uncomfortable truth behind the glamorized violence that had defined the genre. Through Money's journey, Eastwood forces us to confront the reality behind the myths of the American West. As rain pours down on Big Whiskey, Wyoming, and William Money stands in the mud with his gun, we're not watching another heroic showdown. We're witnessing the death of the romantic Western myth itself. This is the story of how Unforgiven killed the traditional Western to save it, transforming a dying genre into something startlingly relevant for modern audiences. In many ways, Unforgiven feels less like a Western and more like a ghost story. Every character is haunted by their past, by their legends, by the violence they've committed or witnessed. And perhaps that's why, over 30 years later, it still has such a powerful hold on our imagination. Because in telling this story of a supposedly reformed killer forced to confront his nature, Eastwood created something that transcends genre, a meditation on violence, redemption, and the stories we tell ourselves about both. Let's explore how this remarkable film came together, and why its shadow looms so large over not just Westerns, but American cinema as a whole. The Craft of Killing, Jack N. Green's cinematography in Unforgiven, tells as much of the story as the script itself. The film's visual language is a masterclass in restraint and symbolism, eschewing the saturated colors and dramatic vistas typical of classic Westerns. Instead, Green and Eastwood opted for a muted palette that mirrors the moral ambiguity of their tale. Shadows creep across faces like guilty memories, while natural lighting creates an atmosphere of stark realism rarely seen in the genre. The film's approach to lighting is particularly noteworthy in Big Whiskey's interiors. Scenes play out in the dim glow of oil lamps and candlelight, creating pools of warmth surrounded by threatening darkness. This technique reaches its apex during the final confrontation at Greeley's beer garden, where lightning flashes illuminate bursts of violence like nature itself, passing judgment on the proceedings. Sound design in Unforgiven is equally revolutionary. Lenny Niehause's score is used sparingly, often absent during moments where traditional Westerns would employ sweeping orchestral arrangements. Instead, we hear the environment, creaking floorboards, whistling wind, the wet impact of rain on mud. This naturalistic approach heightens tension while grounding the film in reality, making each gunshot land with shocking impact. The production design by Henry Bumstead deserves special attention. Big Whiskey feels lived in, with every weathered board and muddy street telling a story. The town itself becomes a character, its architecture reflecting the harsh realities of frontier life. Bumstead's attention to period detail extends beyond mere accuracy. It serves the narrative. The crude medical instruments, the basic carpentry tools, the functional rather than decorative elements all reinforce the film's demythologizing approach to the Old West. Weather plays a crucial role in the film's visual storytelling. The progression from dusty summer to bitter rain mirrors Will Money's descent back into violence. The mud becomes increasingly prominent as the story unfolds, suggesting both moral quagmire and the difficulty of escaping one's past. By the final act, the rain transforms Big Whiskey into a purgatorial space where redemption and damnation hang in precarious balance. The film's editing by Joel Cox perfectly complements these elements. Rather than quick cuts to create artificial excitement, Cox employs longer takes that force us to sit with the consequences of violence. When the action does come, it's brutal and unglamorous. The camera doesn't look away from the ugliness, making each death feel consequential rather than celebratory. Together, these technical elements create a western that feels more like a gothic tragedy than a traditional genre piece. Through careful attention to craft, Unforgiven achieves something remarkable. It makes the familiar territory of the western feel dangerous again, stripping away decades of romantic accretion to reveal something darker and more honest beneath. Performance and power. At the heart of Unforgiven lies a collection of performances that redefined what was possible in a western. Clint Eastwood's portrayal of William Money stands as a masterful subversion of his own screen persona. Gone is the steely-eyed invincibility of his earlier roles, replaced by a man who struggles to mount his horse and squints not in threatening defiance but due to failing eyesight. When Money declares, "I've killed women and children. I've killed just about everything that walks or crawls," the line carries the weight of genuine remorse rather than bravado. Gene Hackman's Little Bill Daggett emerges as one of cinema's most complex antagonists.
I heard that one myself, Bob. Hell, I even thought I was dead. Till I found out it was just that I was in Nebraska.
Hackman imbues the character with a disarming charm that makes his brutal nature all the more shocking. His jovial demeanor while constructing his flawed house, a recurring metaphor for his approach to law and order, creates a false sense of security that explodes into violence. The scene where he brutally beats English Bob serves as a perfect encapsulation of the character, a man who uses violence to enforce civilization while revealing its inherent barbarism. Morgan Freeman brings quiet dignity to Ned Logan, serving as both Money's moral compass and a representation of possible redemption. Their shared history of violence and attempted reformation creates a powerful dynamic, making Ned's eventual fate all the more devastating. The scene where Ned's death is reported to Money represents a crucial turning point, the moment when the reformed killer fully embraces his dark nature once again. Richard Harris's brief but memorable turn as English, Bob provides the film's clearest commentary on the mythology of the West. His interactions with W. Beauchamp, the dime novel author, explicitly address the gap between Western legend and reality.
No, look, I'm not. I don't have a gun. I've never had a gun. I'm a writer.
The scene where Little Bill systematically destroys both Bob's physical presence and legendary status serves as a microcosm of the film's larger themes about the true nature of violence and heroism. Saul Rubinek deserves special mention for his portrayal of W. Beauchamp. His character's journey from romanticizing violence to witnessing its true horror provides the audience with a surrogate for their own relationship with Western mythology. His presence allows the film to directly address how stories of the West have been sanitized and glorified. The chemistry between these performers creates some of the film's most memorable moments. The tense dinner scene where Little Bill tells the Duke of Death story, the quiet conversations between Money and Logan about their past lives, and the final confrontation in Greeley's beer garden all crackle with understated intensity. These scenes work because the actors understand that power often lies in what's left unsaid. Behind the scenes, casting these roles proved challenging. Eastwood had initially considered Gene Hackman for a different role, but Hackman's reluctance to appear in violent films almost prevented him from joining the project entirely. It took considerable convincing to assure him that the film's approach to violence would be more thoughtful than exploitative. This concern ultimately informed his performance, adding layers of complexity to Little Bill's character. Breaking the myth. When Unforgiven premiered in 1992, critical response was notably divided. While many praised its somber deconstruction of Western mythology, others found its deliberate pacing and dark tone challenging. The Washington Post called it a Western for those who have grown out of Westerns, while some traditionalists argued it betrayed the spirit of the genre it claimed to honor. Yet the film's award success proved transformative. Beyond its 4 Oscar wins, including Best Picture and Best Director, Unforgiven achieved something remarkable. It legitimized the Western for a modern audience. The film demonstrated that the genre could tackle complex moral questions while maintaining its fundamental appeal. As years passed, the film's reputation grew substantially. What initially appeared as a dark eulogy for the Western genre revealed itself as something more profound, a reinvention that opened new possibilities for storytelling. critics began recognizing layers of meaning that weren't fully appreciated in initial viewings. Hidden within the film's fabric are fascinating details that reward careful viewing. The name William Money itself serves as a bitter pun on blood money, highlighting the commodification of violence. The construction of Little Bill's house, with its leaking roof and poor craftsmanship, mirrors his flawed approach to justice and order. Even the film's weather patterns follow a deliberate progression, from drought to cleansing rain, paralleling Money's moral journey. Perhaps most intriguingly, the film's treatment of violence evolved in viewers' understanding. What some initially saw as gratuitous revealed itself as purposefully unglamorous. Each act of violence carries weight and consequence, stripped of the balletic grace common to earlier westerns. The famous scene where Money struggles to shoot straight while suffering from fever deliberately undermines the superhuman accuracy typically associated with Western heroes. The film's perspective on truth and mythology grew more relevant with time. Saul Rubinek's character, W.W. Beauchamp, represents not just dime novel writers, but all media that romanticize violence. His journey from celebrating mythologized violence to witnessing its brutal reality mirrors society's own evolving relationship with depictions of violence in entertainment. Even the marketing of the film underwent a transformation. Initially promoted with some traditional Western elements, it soon became clear that Unforgiven's true power lay in its subversion of these tropes. Later releases and retrospectives emphasized its psychological complexity rather than its genre elements, acknowledging how the film had transcended traditional Western boundaries. Time has revealed Unforgiven not just as a great Western, but as a meditation on violence, redemption, and the stories we tell about both. Its evolution from controversial genre piece to acknowledged masterpiece reflects changing attitudes about what cinema can achieve when it confronts uncomfortable truths about human nature, legacy, and modern relevance. Unforgiven's influence on cinema extends far beyond the Western genre. Its DNA can be found in films like The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, where Casey Affleck's Robert Ford, like W.W. Beauchamp, confronts the harsh reality behind Western mythology. No Country for Old Men carries forward its unflinching examination of violence, while The Power of the Dog echoes its deconstruction of masculine archetypes in the American West. Today, the film's themes resonate with startling clarity. Its exploration of how societies justify and mythologize violence speaks directly to contemporary discussions about power and force. When Little Bill brutally beats English Bob while lecturing about maintaining civil order, we see reflections of modern debates about authority and its abuse. The film's treatment of storytelling and truth feels particularly relevant in our current media landscape. Through W.W. Beauchamp's character, Unforgiven explores how narratives shape reality, how the stories we tell about violence, heroism, and justice influence our understanding of these concepts. In an era of contested truths and competing narratives, this aspect of the film has only grown more powerful. What makes Unforgiven endure is its refusal to offer easy answers. Will Money's transformation from reformed killer to avenging angel raises uncomfortable questions about justice and redemption. Is his final rampage an act of justice or a return to evil? The film leaves us to grapple with this ambiguity, much as we grapple with similar questions in our own time. More than just the last great classical Western, Unforgiven represents a crucial pivot point in how American cinema deals with its own myths. It acknowledges the power of these stories while forcing us to confront their cost. When Money declares, "Deserve's got nothing to do with it," he's not just speaking about the immediate situation, he's commenting on the arbitrary nature of violence and justice themselves. The film's influence continues to expand beyond cinema. Modern television series like Deadwood and True Detective owe a clear debt to its unflinching portrayal of violence and corruption. Its impact can even be seen in video games like Red Dead Redemption, which adopts its moral complexity and deglamorized vision of the Old West. In closing, Unforgiven stands as more than just a masterful film. It's a mirror that reflects our ongoing struggle with violence, justice, and the stories we tell about both. In an age where these questions remain as pressing as ever, its uncompromising vision continues to challenge and provoke. Perhaps that's why, 3 decades later, we keep returning to Big Whiskey, Wyoming, finding new relevance in its rain-soaked streets and morally ambiguous characters. Like William Money himself, Unforgiven refuses to let us look away from uncomfortable truths. It asks us to consider not just what stories we tell about our past, but what those stories reveal about our present, and what they might mean for our future. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis, remember to subscribe for more deep dives into classic cinema. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about Unforgiven's take on violence and redemption? Is Is money a hero, a villain, or something in between?